when I was a student in Athens the first time. I've been connected to Greece, and later, beginning in '82, I've been connected to the research of Greek Jewry and Sephardic Jewry and Sephardic studies, and finally the Holocaust. I have two expertise. One is on Sephardim and the Holocaust in 18 countries, and the other is Sephardic genealogy. In general, I'm a historian on the non-Ashkenazi Jews. I edit a monthly email publication on Sephardic Jewry. It used to be called Sfarad, the Sephardic Newsletter. Now it's called Sfarad V'Hamizrach. Since the end of the first decade of the 21st century, I've been trying to start a Sephardic museum in Jerusalem. I also started a foundation in Los Angeles called the Foundation for Jewish Diversity. And most of my time I research Sephardic Jewry. A little bit I connected to public campaigns against past injustices against the Sephardim. I'm on the Knesset Committee for Holocaust Survivors, and there I advocate for Sephardic rights and for some past scandals from the 1950s about the Yemenite and other Sephardic baby kidnappings, the radiation experiments, medical experiments. But in general, I try to fill in the gap and make awareness about the fact that the Sephardim and Eastern Jews are ostracized in museums, in educational curriculum, public commemoration, and Jewish in general public culture. In the first section of the course, we're going to talk about the introduction, about the Jews under Hellenism in the late classical period, in the Byzantine Empire. What is Romaniot culture? What is this Jewish Greek culture and prayer rite of the Jews in the Byzantine Empire? Then we're talking about what happened with Sephardic Jewry, how they arrived in Greece, in the Greek Peninsula. We're going to talk about how Italian Jews were expelled from Sicily and Apulia, how they arrived first in Western Greece in Corfu, and then Ioannina, and then later in Salonika. We'll talk about when the Sephardic Iberian expulsees arrived in Salonika and various parts of Greece, when they came from Portugal, especially when the Inquisition was initiated in Portugal in 1536. We're going to talk about the golden era of Salonika in the 16th century, with all the great poets and rabbis and luminaries, what kind of prolific community it was, about the Talmud Torah, about the individual communities and how they amalgamated with each other because it was just too much. Originally, each community had its own yeshiva, own school, own fabric industry, own treasury, own printing press. All that became one eventually. Because of the religious fervor and ecstasy and despair, we're going to talk about the rise of Sabbatianism, about the false messiah of Shabtai Tzvi, and about what happened afterward when there were three sects of Sabbatian followers who became a significant minority in the city called the Dunmei. Later on in the course, we'll talk about when they were transferred to Turkey and Istanbul in the general population exchange in 1922-1923. Because of Sabbatianism, Salonican and Sephardic Jewry was in decline in the 18th century, but there was actually more religious proliferation then, but it's sort of like a dark period. But it became an economic abyss, and then we have modernization, and that's the beginning of the first part of the course, when because of Western education, because of Western culture and Europeanization, and the Alliance Israélite Universelle school systems throughout the Greek peninsula, not just Salonika, that there became a significant change. The Sephardic culture became a modern culture, and not only religion driven, and there became secularization, but the Sephardic culture became enriched as a secular culture, whether it was in drama or music. And that's the gist of the first half. So we talked not only about Salonika, we talked about the Jewish communities, Sephardic communities in Thrace, like Komotini and Kavala. We'll talk about a little bit about the communities which were annihilated in the Peloponnese, and we'll also talk about Crete, which is a melange, a mixture of Sephardic and Romaniote and Italian and Venetian culture. In the first part, we also talk about the Venetian culture and how that influenced the Jews of the Greek peninsula, especially in Crete, especially in the Ionian Islands. And the first part is fascinating and it's very diverse.